Welcome to Brands We Love podcast, where we discuss brands, Kenyan household brands that have been in the market for decades and are beloved in this country. This is a podcast produced by Mula. My name is Lydia Nyawera, and I'd like my co hosts to introduce themselves.
My name is Susan Nyawera.
My name is Ivy Malloy.
My name is John Girashu.
All right. This week we're discussing Bata, a shoe manufacturing company that is a brand that has been in Kenya for decades. And it's one of those brands that everybody assumes belongs to them because Bata is one of those companies that have been a part of everybody's life one way or another. And it's in so many countries that people think that it's one of their brands. I don't know if you guys have ever come across a situation where you think you know something about a company until you get some more information about it and it turns out, well, you are very, very wrong. Just to get a little feel about it, I don't know how what has been your experience with Bata? For me, I remember Bata being one of those brands that we went to school with because you needed a pair of Toughees to wear to school, and they were the people you went to for a nice pair of school shoes. And it's one of those brands, I think it was called Toughees, yeah? It's one of those brands that you lived with and believed that it was a way of life for very many Kenyan families to have an opportunity to buy your loved one a pair of shoes from Bata was really a privilege. I don't know, Susan, do you remember anything about Bata that makes you like associate the brand with?
Bata for me is everything about school, primary school, high school. I wore Toughees, but there's a time I was not bought for Toughees and I felt sad. Anyway, I was in Form 4 and the investment to get my Toughees, maybe my mom thought she's going to finish, and the cost of getting the other brands from downtown was a bit better. It's been a brand that I've also not just worn in school. In campus, I used to rock Ngomas a lot. Bata Ngoma, they were retailing at 299 shillings for the longest time. With the high rate of inflation now, they've gotten to 399. Economics. And Bata Bullets, I liked Bata Bullets for games. The stripes were very nice and I see people rocking them now. I don't know if I should get a pair soon. So that's my Bata story.
All right. Ivy.
Yeah, for me, I also associate Bata with just my schooling since I started school to the end. And also, other than Toughees being like a compulsory thing, because used to be told that thing they give your parent when you come to school, you have to buy any uniform, buy Bata Toughees, and they were very specific, either with laces or with the 3 holes. For boys, it was with the laces, and for girls, it was for the 3 holes or the flat shoes. I didn't like the flat ones though. They used to make you slide. I don't know if I'm the only one who had that experience.
For sure.
I used to love sliding though.
Yeah, they used to slide. That was very risky. And also Bata Ngomas, they were also a requirement for PE. So it was either black or red. You couldn't do any other color, though they had very many other colors. There was red, there was black, there was white. I think there was blue and purple at some point. Yeah, and also Bata Ngomas are really comfortable. I still buy them, though they discolor now, unlike the
And they
previous ones.
shrink.
Yeah, they do
Especially the
shrink.
black ones. You wash them once or twice, say the color tricky, but I still buy them because they're very convenient, especially when you go to your shags. Those are the best shoes to wear.
Girasho, what's your Bata story?
Like you guys, I also grew up with Bata in my life. But then I had an interesting experience sometime in primary school where the teacher, during the inspection, during the parade, she came and asked me why we wearing different shoes. And I looked at my shoes, and to me, you know your shoes, they look good to you. You polish them every morning. And when I now took a closer look, I realized one of the shoes, I think the left one was creased. It had, the leather had sort of crinkled. So I then sort of launched an investigation into what was going on. So when I spoke to my dad about it, he told me, those are real Bata shoes. What do you mean? And I bought them at the store. Where is that store? On River Road. I think the house is Nyakeo House or something. And I then later, when I grew up, realized it's called a Bata mini price. And when I did now my investigation, I found that store sold shoes at a lower cost because the shoes were not 100%. And what I got to learn is that in the factory, when they are making it, and maybe the the shoemaker's hand doesn't guide the leather well on the machine, so that maybe it's cut badly or it's stitched a bit badly, that shoe is not thrown away. It's still good enough to wear. It's only that you can't wear it to a gala dinner. It's it's a bit off.
Yeah.
But so I found out that and was surprised. But anyway, this is your parent trying to get you to go through school at a lower cost.
Yeah.
You don't need gala dinner shoes to go to school.
Surprisingly, I
But that
think,
was Bata mini price for me.
yeah, I think many people don't know about Bata mini price because me, when I came to Nairobi, I was just randomly walking along River Road, and that's when I saw that store. I was like, wow. So I even entered it. Like, shoes there are very affordable, like in Bata, because I know now Toughees are about $399, $39999. How many? $299, yeah.
Yeah, in that
Uko is
range.
like 500, 1,000. I was like, okay. Well, maybe even me, I got shoes from there. You never know with parents.
Me, I got from there. My mom discovered it, and with 3 children, I'm sure she needed to manage to buy for all of us Bata shoes. So I've been to Bata mini price, and not as an adult.
This is interesting because it helps us understand that with the economics of buying shoes every now and then, it's good to know that there is an option for those of us who need to cut costs. We reached out to people around our workspaces and our colleagues, and we asked them about Bata, and this is what they had to say. And just listening to what they have to say about their experiences with Bata.
All I know about Bata was the shoes that we used to wear back in high school and primary.
Bata is a shoemaking company in Kenya. It's a sentiment brand. We grew up with it, went to school with it in primary, all the way to high school.
Bata has served me from the time I was in school up to now. I still buy my shoes in Bata, but the sneakers only.
I grew up wearing Bata shoes, and they used to be very premium and quality shoes. We used them for all our primary, secondary school education.
I know it's not Kenyan, but I feel like Bata positions itself as a home brand because even the South Africans think it's South African, yet it's not.
Honestly, I don't know, but I've seen their factory in Limuru. Not sure if it's Kenyan or multinational. I don't know.
I am not sure. Not really. South Africa?
No, it's not a Kenyan brand. Somewhere in Europe, I think it's Switzerland or somewhere.
This is a franchise. The holding company is outside Kenya. I'm not sure of the name of the country, but I know I'm sure that it's Egypt.
Bata is not a Kenyan brand, I'm very sure, but it has a heritage. We love it as a Kenyan brand, all the way from Limuru.
Right now, I hardly wear Bata shoes, but back when I was schooling, it was a staple.
No.
Yes, but specific brands it offers, like Power.
Yeah. My Secret Santa got me a Bata sneaker. What is it called? I've forgotten the name, but I really like it. I wore it yesterday, actually.
I love it because it's a legacy brand. I've worn it all through my school.
I love Bata. That's why I buy a lot of shoes from Bata. As I said, sneakers, especially North Stars and Power.
That was interesting. It turns out that very many people do not know where Bata originated from, but they have a rough idea. Now, the Bata Group, which owns Bata Kenya, is a family-owned business that has been in existence for over 125 years. And here's the most interesting thing about the history that we found out. The TNA Bata Shoe Company was established on September 21st, 1894 by siblings Thomas, Anna, and Antonin Bata. The 8th generation of Bata family shoemakers started out this business in Czechoslovakia. Now, they were innovators. So they started out with a small shop with just 10 people. And by the 1930s, they had expanded to Europe. The funny thing is, very many people don't realize that as they expanded, each and every country they went into started to adopt Bata, assuming that it belonged to them. Hence why in Kenya, many people assume that Bata is a Kenyan brand because it came in Also, quite early in the shoe market, Susan is going to get into the history of Bata in Kenya. But basically, Bata is not a Kenyan brand. It's actually a Czechoslovakian one and a European one. And it's interesting because even the name, when you think about it, it sounds like a Swahili name, Bata, like a duck. So it makes it seem like it's one of us. And since it's been in our homes for so long, we assume that it's one of the brands that originated in this country. I don't know, Susan, just tell us when did Bata make it to Kenya?
After their global launch, they came into Kenya in 1932. That's almost 31 years before independence. So the colonialists,
Yeah.
I don't know if they're the ones who brought them here. And the first stores were in Nairobi and Mombasa. So they had not yet set up shop, but they just brought 2 stores. This grew in 1939 to around 16 stores around the country. Then in 1939 still, they started there was a construction of a footwear factory in Mombasa, and 100 people were working in this factory. I don't know if the heat was a bit too much for them, since 3 years later, they moved to Limuru, which is a very cold area. And using that route, I used to see the Bata billboard and know I've entered Naivasha. Okay, I know it's Limuru, but we can talk about that later. So 1942, the factory in Limuru was built. They used to make footwear and also clothing. I didn't know this. We found out during the research. The number of employees rose to around 1,000 people in 1943, then 1,400 people. So clearly they really offered Kenyans, I'm guessing it's Kenyans who are employed there, a lot of employment. Then in 1962, just before independence, they were able to register East Africa Bata Shoe Company and also Interco Limited. Around 1965 again, they had some issues. Bata's organization in the country lost its network of stores, which were taken by government intervention. So there's some sadness hapo. But in 1978, the sister company, Bata Shoe Company Kenya, started operating in the country. And in 1992, they had 3 companies, Bata Kenya, Limuru, Shipping Department, Mombasa, and a branch factory in Voi. They were just producing the leather shoes, but now they also started producing work and safety boots, and we even have the safari boots. I don't know, what are your thoughts on this?
It's very interesting because I was hoping Girash would get into, we hear that when you want to talk about the mountain and Limuru, it's good to note because one of the things I've realized about Bata is that they were capitalizing on the fact that there was enough leather in the country for them to actually set up a production facility. And one of the key things that we found out in the research is that the Bata company understood that they could also be a source of shoes for the rest of the region. And to date, Kenya's Limuru factory has a very significant role to play in Bata operations. But of course, the foundation and the growth of the Bata company and the Limuru plant also ties into the history of Limuru and expanding the shoe market in Kenya. What has been your experience in terms of the Limuru? I know you mentioned it earlier when we were having our
And I guess you're asking me about that because I come from near Limuru. But the Bata Shoe Company in Limuru has been like a well-known feature of the company there. I think it's even featured in some of the literature that has come out of Kenya, in Ngugi wa Thiong'o's books, in Ngugi wa Thiong'o's plays, Gahi Kadeda, they mentioned the Bata factory. But it was part of, I think, their marketing strategy, but also part of the DNA of the company. Because when they started expanding, they'll build roads and canals, they'll have airplanes, boats, trucks, and you find that as they expanded, actually, places that they settled in were actually named after Bata. They had Bataville in France, Batanaga in India, Batatuba in Brazil, Kalibata in Java, Batawa in Canada. You see, it's very in tune with the language and the culture of the place. A lot of places in India are called Naga. I think it means city. Ottawa, Canada, Batawa. Ville in French, ville means, I think, village. So I think we should be surprised Limuru is not called
Bata Limuru.
Ingekuwa Bamuru.
Batali.
Bamuru.
or something.
Batali.
But that was part,
Batali.
yeah. So that was part of their expansion strategy, and also getting into culture. In Kenyan history, the Bata factory in Limuru was one of the well-known employers, places you'd like to work for. Someone like Chris Obure, who I think last was senator for Kisii, he started his career in Bata in Limuru. And it is from there that he was then poached by Kenneth Matiba to go work at breweries, at Kenya breweries. So the Bata in Limuru is known in culture in Limuru, around Limuru is still there. They have a big store. It's near the railway, which I guess is one of the reasons they were situated where they were. It is a village inside. So it's a really big deal, and it's actually modeled on the Bata approach to working in countries. And I guess even when you go to Limuru today, you'll still find people who work there, who can attribute, their life's work to and their life's earnings to working at Bata. So, and I guess that's what also made it significant, and also put it in the minds of people, because when you think of Bata and you think, oh, these shoes just came from down the road, or they're just from around, and Limuru is a famous place for many reasons, some political. That's how then Bata gets ingrained into our thinking. Although, as we will find out later, it's not everything that Bata makes comes from Limuru. They import. They also distribute to other parts of the continent. And so the Limuru factory was actually like a hub for Bata for the region, like happens with a lot of multinationals with establishments here in Kenya.
I think Bata's strategy was very wise there in terms of manufacturing locally and getting people to adopt it as one of its own. And probably why currently Bata continues to be one of the retail chains that has really expanded very fast, with over 126 stores countrywide and over 1,000 employees. And to date, like I said, the Limuru plant continues to supply Bata shoes across the continent. I was thinking, one of the things that has also marked Bata's growth is the brands that we've continued to use from the organization. I realized that as we were having the conversation, everybody almost mentioned Toughees. That was because Toughees, they started the Toughy brand all the way back in 1954. So it's a shoe brand that they targeted school-going children, knowing that for a fact most parents will want to buy something like that. And then schools adopted it as a form of uniform. And that is how it was ingrained in us from an early age. And most of us can attest to the fact that Toughees have been one of those shoes that have stood the test of time. I don't know whether there are any specific shoe brands that you found that, well, Goma. I know you mentioned Goma. Are there any other shoe brands that you found were iconic, especially to the Bata brand?
I like Bubblegummers
for
kids. They look cute. I don't have kids yet to buy for, but maybe
when the squeaky ones. Do you know the squeaky ones? The ones that
the ones that are squeaky. I find them very beautiful. They look nice.
Yeah.
They are noisy, but they look nice.
Do you have any other brand aside? That would be Toughees, Goma, and
their Marie Claire shoes are also nice.
Yeah.
I think those are the two brands. I've not bought them, but when I go to the store.
What's Marie Claire? Is it like shoes for women?
Yeah, they are shoes for women. Very posh women who are well put together. Susan in her 40s.
Oh my God.
Yes.
We see you. Yeah? We see you, Susan.
You mentioned Bata bullets at some point.
Okay, Bata bullets I wore them in primary school a lot. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I'm not a big fan. But I see people wearing them with their day-to-day looks, like even in the office. Mm. But for me, that season of my life is over. For Bata bullets.
You're not a Bata bullets person anymore.
No, if in primary, if you didn't wear Bata bullets, you used to be punished during PE. I think it scarred me.
Ivy, what brand of shoes do you associate with Bata aside from, of course, the Toughees and?
Well, of course, there's the Toughees. She mentioned Bata bullets. I've never worn them, but I've seen. Actually, I've seen someone in the office with them, and I thought the shoes are really cute. I think I'd actually go and get them. because they look like you can wear them with jeans and with a dress and they still look good. So I think that's maybe you should reconsider your choices,
No.
Susan.
It's a no from me.
But also, I'd associate Bata with the slippers. Do you remember the blue
Oh, the
slippers and the red?
patapatas that are found in every establishment.
And are very slippery.
Yeah, they're so bad. Don't shower with those ones.
The flip flops. Okay,
Yeah.
for those who don't know, they are flip flops. They usually come in two colors. That would be red and
Or blue.
Yes.
But
Patapata.
there's also an upgraded sort of high-end
The
patapata.
uh-huh.
But those ones are not slippery. I like them. And they are the standard issue in a lot of hospitals. I think if they're being given in hospitals, they're
The brown ones.
No, the red ones, the blue ones. At home, I have like maybe 4 pairs from the times I've been in hospital, from the times a relative has been, from the times we've had kids. But they are quite good, actually. The thing about them, they are light, easy to carry, easy to wear. Yeah, so
Yeah, they're very portable.
they're
They're
very
portable,
Yes,
yeah.
the portability is a big deal.
Yeah.
Which other brands for you?
Well, I think those are the only ones other than what Susan has mentioned. Yeah.
I think for me, growing up, I remember my cousin who they lived in Nairobi wearing North Stars, some brown ones with a yellow stripe, and they looked very good then. Then there's also the Safari boot. The Safari boot had a very, I'll say, authentic, very original ad, which really drew them to us. I have different opinions about them now, about the shoes now. I think when the one pair I wore was not comfortable. It felt like it's pressing my feet. Maybe it's something to do with my feet. But they're also still quite popular. I think the Safari boot has been copied a lot, even by now local indigenous shoemakers.
Yeah.
The design they copy is the Safari boot. The North Star now has a very pretty, very nice range of sneakers. I have a pair of sneakers that I wear on Fridays, and people wonder, but they're actually very affordable North Star
It's Friday.
sneakers. No, I'm not wearing them today. Then there's Hush Puppies.
Yeah.
Hush Puppies, which I think they're an American brand, which Bata distributes, which also have some very good-looking shoes.
Yeah.
People will confuse your Hush Puppies for Clarks. So for me, those are the brands that have really stood out. Then there's Weinbrenner. I don't know if it's pronounced Weinbrenner. It sounds like a German.
I've never heard of that
They
one.
make them for outdoors, for hiking. So if you want a shoe that makes you look like you engage in outdoor activities, like you're a tough person, you can buy a couple of Weinbrenners. And Weinbrenners also have a range of sandals, which also look tough. Yeah. So even if you're a gouty old man, you wear Weinbrenners, you look like you actually engage in outdoor activities.
Would you know the cost of the hiking boots from Bata?
No, I haven't checked. And you're being cheeky in asking that because I hike. I don't know whether I'll buy a hiking shoe, a Weinbrenner hiking shoe. Maybe it's my own biases about the quality of Bata. Maybe it's that issue from the shoes that didn't match.
The quality.
Move
The
on.
quality, yeah. No, I've moved on. I buy Hush Puppies now from Bata.
He's actually wearing Hush Puppies,
Yes,
guys.
Yeah.
yes, I like them. Yeah, yeah. So that's those are the brands that I really associate with Bata. But I see now they actually have a sneaker corner, a sneaker area in their stores where they sell sneakers. And I think what they are going for is that these are original branded sneakers, quite pricey, 12K, 16K, 17, 20,000. Puma, I think Adidas, Skechers. I think if you are looking for a genuine pair of sneakers, you can then buy from there. I guess that's the idea behind that sneaker corner of theirs. Oh, and Power. They have a range of sports shoes called Power. Yeah. More affordable than North Star, and also very classy looking. You are looking for a nice shoe that doesn't cost too much, a nice sneaker that doesn't cost too much. Yeah.
It seems Bata has been very keen in terms of marketing because just like you mentioned, they seem to have something for everyone, whether you are young, old, hiking, you want to go to the office. And these are some of the branding strategies that have made Bata a brand we love. And I just wanted to maybe just highlight on some of the marketing strategies we've noticed with Bata that make the experience with Bata, something that is memorable. And one of the things I noticed is that one of the things that Bata often does is that they identify a market and they target the kind of shoes that they think that market needs. So, like you're saying, if they identify a place that is close to the mountains, they'll probably introduce the hiking boots. If it's a farming area, you'll find that they'll find comfortable shoes, less office wear, and depending on the range, whether it's high end or medium, and even with the mini price, they found a way to market themselves as a brand that fits all. I was thinking about it and I remembered that, Ivy, remember the time when one of the marketing strategies was the Goliath issue?
Yeah.
Did you see that online? It was such an interesting way for Bata to come in and help him.
First of all, Gen Z Goliath, historically, these were the biggest shoes these guys have ever produced. So the shoes were size 21, that's UK shoe size. And this guy has never worn shoes in his entire life. And then he's also he's a giant. They call him Goliath. So he's like 8 feet and 2 inches tall. So he's very huge. And Bata actually took advantage of the fact that he's never worn shoes, and they went and custom made shoes for him, and it became a whole thing, and everyone was like, impressed. Yeah.
That's amazing because, one of the things I've noticed about Bata is that even if you go to their website, they're very clear. They don't custom make shoes unless you specifically order them because they're a mass audience kind of company. That was good because they were able to ride on that. But they've also got other ways that they've marketed themselves across the country and even into our hearts and into our homes. I know I enjoyed the fact that Bata was the first place where I could go to get my shoe measured. Like they have this little stands where you put your foot and they tell you you're 5 inches, 2 inches, whatever. It was the first time I got to do that because previously my mother would take a paper, put it on my foot and then go around with that paper or a string. So some of those small experiences are what have ingrained Bata into a brand that we love. So do you have any maybe experiences with Bata that made you remember or consistently want to go back for them?
I still like their logo. The font, I don't know the font, but it flows. It flows the B to the A to the T to the other A. And the boxes and how they package the shoes once you buy them. There are some, depending on the store you buy, but for Bata, it's the first shoe that I got with a box. So I really used to get happy seeing the shoes in a box.
It's like opening a gift.
Yeah.
So one of the things Bata did very well was, in adjusting to the market, in adjusting to the needs of the market. So with like Gumboots, the basic Gumboot, you'll find people who sell shoes telling you during the rainy season, the Bata Gumboot is actually selling more than the other Gumboots. And then they have a range in terms of color, a short range, because you can get a white Gumboot. I've actually seen a very senior surgeon at the Aga Khan Hospital wearing white Bata Gumboots as he goes into theater. They're also popular in food processing entities. White looks clean, looks hygienic. Any stain on it will be seen. And I have a friend who has a red pair of gumboots. And he bought a red pair intentionally so that when he goes to the farm and the farmhand cannot steal them, nobody can get away with taking his red gumboots because they make that. And they also have gumboots for kids, for younger people, and they now customize them to look cute. Pink for girls, blue for boys, and that whole thing. So I think that really works for them. The way the safari boot was made, it was like, you see the way Toughees are made, you get the idea they are tough.
Yeah.
And let me tell you a Toughees story. So I once went to Starehe Girls. So we are doing a feature about the school, and when they go for lunch, they remove their shoes before they entering the dining room. So I found that interesting. And then Bata gives students who go Starehe Girls shoes free.
Okay.
So they're all wearing Toughees. So we go to this school, there's hundreds of kids, and these hundreds of kids deposit their shoes at the door of the dining hall. So I was stood out there wondering, okay, so when they come out, how will someone know this is where I put my shoes and these are my shoes? Because they have the exact same
shoe.
pair of shoes. So when they got back out after lunch, lunch in high school, very brief, very quick. So they came back out and it was like a time lapse, like a highlight reel. They all came back and everyone found their shoes. I guess it speaks to, you can actually tell this is my left shoe. This is how it's worn. This is my right shoe. This is how it's worn. This is where I placed it. So I found that interesting. Safari boots. The marketing was attuned to young men. A very mannish, very very tough exterior, and you found people really wanted to get those ones. And if you didn't get the one with a rough cover, rough top, there was another one with a smoother brown top. And when we were looking into Bata, I found Bata got around by being innovative, by making a different style of shoes. Their first shoe was actually a combination of canvas and leather, which was contrary to what was being done in Europe at that time. So I think that innovativeness and always having something different really works. My personal frustration with them has been, I've gone to a store, bought a nice shoe, then it's worn out. Then I go back a few months later, I ask, I want this shoe. They tell me it's out of production.
Yeah.
When is it coming back? It's out of production forever. And I ask them, but this shoe works for you. Why don't you produce more of it? But anyway, I always find another pair to buy. So I think that's some of the marketing and working strategies that has really worked for them.
I think that's a very interesting way to look at it, because, like I said, and like you've mentioned, mass appeal, making sure there's a shoe for every foot, like the Starehe Girls, and also employing people locally made people feel like they could be loyal to that brand, because it's employing people around. They are making shoes where you can see the process, and then they are making them affordable for you, whichever country you're in. And then when you look at the expansion strategy, because one of the things that Bata has had to contend with over the years, 126 years is not a short time, it's over a century, is competition. And Bata has found a way to expand its stores across the board, ensuring that wherever the people are, Bata has a store. It's interesting to find that even in 2025, it's still finding a way to have a conversation about what shoe are you interested in and can we make it possible for you. And I was thinking there's some alternatives that many of us have thought about. Maybe for me, I've always thought about that because of the pricing of Bata. Many people think that secondhand shoes are an option, and then they're also fighting other competitors in terms of quality, in terms of availability. Are there alternatives that you found yourself considering, Susan, maybe in terms of competition for Bata?
I mentioned for but the Bata shoes I've worn mostly was the Toughees in school. Bata Ngomas, I stopped wearing them. I don't have a pair now, but their flats are more pricey than what is available in town, which are Chinese counterparts, or they're sourced from Turkey, China. Also, there are other brands like El Swekiki, Umoja, Mr. Price, who also have shoes that Bata also offer, but at an affordable price. So I think the affordability of the Bata shoes, in school it made a bit more sense. But for now, I think I have options. I don't have to do Bata. Yeah.
Ivy, have you identified alternatives or shoes that you've grown to now consider instead of walking into a Bata store? What have you found has worked for you?
Actually, I rarely buy shoes from Bata unless it's Ngomas.
Yeah.
But I've also bought the Ngoma version of at Umoja, the store called Umoja. It is it's basically the same shoe, just with a different name. Of course, Bata is a bit pricey now. So, and they're always like, there's them Tumba shoes. I've actually bought a lot of Tumba shoes, and especially the sport shoes, the sporty wear, and also LC Waikiki has really good shoes. They're not that pricey. They're almost the same range, but Bata is still a bit expensive. But I've had the shoes for like 3 years and they still work. I feel like the quality of Bata is kind of questionable at the moment. Yeah.
And also, there's the fact that people can now buy shoes online.
Yeah.
And you don't need to go to a physical store to do that. Well, there are people like that feel
Rasho.
uncomfortable buying a shoe online.
Same here.
You also don't buy shoes online, but there are people who consistently are going into e-commerce in terms of getting that right pair of shoe. Have you found any ways that Bata is struggling?
Yeah. I went through a mitumba phase in mostly in high school, in university for a bit. But then I've eventually kind of switched back to Bata. But there are also more options. I bought shoes from Flo, FLO. The shoes are from Turkey, I think. Most of them have been good quality. Polaris, they have some US Polo Association shoes that I've liked. I've seen Umoja, but I'm a conservative buyer. I've gone and looked and doubted and left. There are also local manufacturers. There's someone I've seen, a couple of people actually I've seen on TikTok who are making good shoes from, there's a lady called Sunrise Handmade Leather Shoes. She's making shoes, she's selling. I recently saw online someone else, I think Moya or Mayo, they're making their own shoes. Of course, there's always the local guy in the local shopping center who can create a decent shoe. So I think the variety is much more now. I think they've also upped their game significantly. When I was growing up in the 90s, I wouldn't think of them as a place to buy shoes because Mutumba shoes were mostly cheaper. But then Mutumba shoes, eventually you started doubting the quality. You can't really get what you want. You don't know whether you've been cheated on the price. You don't know whether it will fall apart when you go home. But there are also, sneakers. There are people who import sneakers. You can buy online. You can buy from Nairobi Sports House. You can buy from hiking shoes. You mostly buy from Decathlon or secondhand. So the variety, the options are there, but I think Bata still stands out.
Okay. And on that wonderful note, I wonder, could we maybe rate whether Bata is still a brand we love on a scale of 1 to 10? Just looking at its history, how it's marketed itself, how it's continued over the years to be a brand that is still in the market. I don't know. I think I'll be the last one to rate it. I want to hear what you guys have to say. Ivy, on a scale of 1 to 10, is Bata still a brand we love?
Yes, it is. So I'd give it like a 6.5.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why a 6.5? What's the 0.5?
Because I like the Bata Ngomas and they last long. In as much as they discolor, the black ones, they really do serve me in their discolored form. The problem is just the discoloration. But the sole and everything, perfect.
I'll give Bata a strong 6.
Okay.
I've not worn Bata shoes in a long time, but they've come through for me in tough times with the Bata Ngoma when I could only afford shoes for 300 bob. Looking forward to buying the Marie Claire's when I turn 40.
I was initially thinking of a 5, but when I think about it a bit more, I think I'll give them a good 7.
Okay.
Because they've increased the range. They have hash puppies, they have the sneakers, they still have all the other shoes. So you can actually buy their shoes for your kid, for your school-going kid, for your sister, brother, cousin in secondary school, in high school, for someone in campus, and you can even buy them when you're working and you have a good job when you're starting out. So I think the range that they offer, perhaps they can do more to market the range, and the way the business has adjusted to competition and to modernity and to the changing environment. So I think I'll give them a 7.
Okay.
I think they're quite impressive, and they stand by you in tough economic times. If you want to go into the mud, if you want to go into the factory, into the milk factory, if you don't want them to be stolen, you buy a red pair of gumboots. So I think the range and the versatility of the brand really works for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I'd rate them a solid 6 as well, because one, they have stood the test of time. Secondly, they continue to consider to be across the country. That means they've not been held back by being just in urban centers. They've been all over the country. And on top of that, they continue to provide a shoe for every foot, because regardless of whether you're 2 years old or 45 or 90, you'll find a pair of shoes that suits you at the end of the day. And hopefully they'll survive another 100 years, because clearly they sound like a brand that Kenyans still love. As we wrap up this show, I just wanted to wish each and every person who may have a comment, a suggestion, a brand they love, they'd like us to listen or research, please let us know. Brands We Love is a podcast from Mula Media. On the next episode of Brands We Love, we are going to be discussing big pens and their history in the country.